Middlecoff. Remember Jim Harbaugh used to be a part of our lives every day?
I remember that guy. He was a walking, talking soundbite.
It was quite a time back in our radio days. But now we're in our YouTube days, and we remind you to subscribe to this channel and like this video. We appreciate it.
Also, check out the podcast below in the description. That's Guy. I'm John. A lot of content coming your way if you subscribe to our channels.
Some content we got at the end of the week was Tim Kawakami, who your boss at the Athletic, TK,
Yeah, friend, partner,
who we love, who is like the Harbaugh whisperer, got Harbaugh on a podcast, and talked about a lot of things. Harbaugh's open letter to college football, Harbaugh's time at Michigan, and his time with the 49ers. And you want to play this, and then we'll react to it? Listen.
You play Tim.
All right, listen to this here.
Jed York has mentioned that he would wanted to have lunch with you at some point, have a meal. Have you talked to Jed at all over the years since you left the 49ers?
No, we haven't talked, but almost ran into each other one time. But talked to John, I talked to Kyle, and a lot of folks in the organization. But yeah, I'm sure we'll cross paths. And Jed York gave me a tremendous opportunity to be the coach of the 49ers, and we had some great years. So it's all good, Tim.
All right, and you can listen to the we'll link their podcast, Tim's podcast, in the description below if you want to hear the whole thing. How do you almost run into a person, you think?
I love that. Yeah, we almost ran into each other. Like, where? Can I get more details?
Does that mean you saw each other and they're like, and they're like, nah, and then went the other way?
Yeah, did someone just tell you? Yeah, he was also in the state of Michigan the last month. You know, is it one of those? Or is it like, were you at a function? You're like, oh, yeah, Jed York is over there. I don't know. It's only Harbaugh talks like that.
Maybe it was one of those, you just missed him.
Maybe he just missed him on purpose.
Yeah. But I do think, look, I actually think the exit probably in retrospect could have been worse. There probably could have been more mudslinging from both sides. Regardless of what you think about how it's gone at Michigan for Jim, I happen to think
it was pretty bad.
No, it was bad because this team had 8 straight years of awful football, right? In the 8 years before Harbaugh showed up, they had one 500 season. In his first 3 years, they go 36-11, 2 NFC Championship games, or the NFC Championship game off the bat. They eventually get to the Super Bowl. And in 4 years, he goes 44-19, and that's with the 4th year being a down year. Really, from a public standpoint, there wasn't anybody on the 49ers side when Harbaugh left. I think now that time's gone on, part of what I hear from that is maybe he's chilled out. The Niners, certainly, they've had their success. Maybe Jed's chilled out on him. He wants to eat dinner with him. And I think even fans probably can come at this now from a less pick side standpoint and just go, it was cool what we had, and everyone maybe is better off now in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, I hate doing the woulda, coulda, shoulda, but a couple balls bounce, on a punt in 2011 and an incredible Richard Sherman play in 2013. I guess it was played in 14. The team could have gone to 3 straight Super Bowls, Guy. And it's one thing about the success, the NFC Championships, the Super Bowl. To me, it's more just how it looked. And they beat the shit out of everyone. And it was awesome. They were badasses. And he kind of carried this stick of resurrecting this franchise. And it turned sour, and it turned sour so fast. And it became such a public, divorce. And they chose sides. And they chose Trent Baalke, who the best thing that's happened to the Niners in the last several years was Jed York finally pulling the trigger on Trent Baalke. It's not like Trent Baalke pivoted post-Harbaugh to kind of resurrect his name. It only got way worse. Chip Kelly and Jim Tom Sula. Like, it couldn't have been any uglier. The irony is Chip Kelly, while I think we'd all say, yeah, he's a better coach than Jim Tom Sula, his season looked way worse than Tom Sula's. Tom Sula was just a laughingstock the way that his press conferences went and just how discombobulated everything felt. We talk about Jim Tom Sula, and you and I have always said this, like he was the Orlovsky Detroit Lions. Oh, yeah, they won 1 game, or they went winless. They won 5.
They won 5.
Chip Kelly won 2 and got pretty lucky to win 2. They were historically – it was the worst year in the history of the San Francisco 49ers. But, I think the Jim thing that's made the separation a little easier is that is that
I don't know why I keep this on my iPad, but Arians is saying it's second down.
Tom Sula thought it was fourth.
Tom Sula saying it's fourth down.
I just think that the last several years, having Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch has made everyone forget about those times. And I think Jim, not that he was forgettable, but it's not like he went to Michigan and turned into Dabo Swinney, Nick Saban, Urban Meyer, right? He's had his struggles, which has enabled the conversation just to kind of dissipate and just simmer. And it's just not really a conversation around these parts anymore, and rightfully so because of Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah, I think his first year is the memory of his first year is nothing but positive, right? 13-3,
Alex Smith,
losing the NFC Championship game, even though it, like you said, a couple, the Kyle Williams bounces, but
beat the Saints.
Yeah, it is just glory. I think year 2 and 3, losing the Super Bowl and losing the NFC Championship game in the third year, they felt like, in looking back on them, John, it felt like year 2 and year 3 had the pressures that years like 5 and 6 for a coach usually have. Like, we lived a lot of time in a short amount of time, and with that came Alex and Colin and all kinds of stuff. And then year 4 was we probably remember that worse than it was based on the record, right? At 8-8. But I do think, just listening to Tim ask about Jed and kind of the way Jim answered, it just made us think about kind of how will we remember that era. I do think, even though losing the Super Bowl, you remember the story, like was Harbaugh, like there was a report that some people in the Niners felt like Harbaugh was off his game because he was coaching against his brother. Like, it was weird for a couple years.
I think you're being light there. There were reports that he threw the Super Bowl, not like Tim Donaghy or the Black Sox, but close to he couldn't really handle the situation with his brother, so he was just
handling it is different than like intentionally losing it.
Yeah,
right.
But that was kind of the vibe of a lot of reports that were out there.
But that's
asinine.
Yeah. But that's why I didn't go there, because that's just stupid. But it's good that you bring it up, because it's hard to recapture just how crazy the 3 years were. The first year was not. The first year was just all gravy. Everything after that got crazy, but it does feel like, listening to him talk, I think if you're a Niner fan watching this, I got to think you do look back on that whole thing, and it really helps you if Kyle Shanahan had not shown up and it had just been more bad football. Maybe it'd be harder to feel this way. But I think there is, like, for the first time, I see a day when Harbaugh is back at the 49ers stadium. He's at Levi's. Him and Jed shake hands, hug on the field, maybe laugh. He flips a coin, and everybody's just happy, and that's maybe that's not how everybody feels behind the scenes. I don't ever get the sense at Stanford that anybody misses him, but I do think that's in their future now, and it should be, because for fans that are 49ers fans, that was such a big point in this organization's history.
And isn't it, this happens, a tried and true formula, right?
Yeah.
Time heals all wounds, whether it's personal, whether it's professional, whether it's in sports, whether it's in any aspect of your life. The way they talk about it now, as everyone's moved on, as everyone's had some success, and I think one day, if Jim's ever able to get over the hump, right, as a college coach, and definitely that would kind of maybe, pave the way for him to get back into the NFL. Maybe he's coaching an opponent of the Niners. I think you'd get a standing ovation. I think for the most part, people can nitpick him as a coach, right? It wasn't perfect. We're not talking Belichick or, Parcells or just like some all-time great, but it was pretty damn good. And I think he basically has universal approval of just, we appreciate what this man did. Even though if you gave the average Niner fan, like, would you rather have Harbaugh back or Kyle Shanahan? I think they'd all take Kyle Shanahan.
In a heartbeat.
It wouldn't even flinch, but that doesn't, like, what he meant to that franchise, those teams, the historic amount of players that were on those teams. He created the Seattle 49er rivalry. A big aspect of it was him and Pete Carroll guy. And I just think how much pride he had. And one thing I think you still hear in his voice a little bit, and he said this, and I never knew whether it was true or not, how, like, this was the only job he ever wanted. Like, he was the head
Michigan
coach of the San Francisco 49er job. Like, once he got it, he would have kept it for as long as they would have had him.
Yeah.
I don't think he's bullshitting there. Like, He understood, he's a football historian, how powerful the franchise is. He was winning. It made him, like he was a big deal at Stanford. He became a rock star in San Francisco. And that's the power of the 49ers brand. And I think he understood that, understands the power of the NFL. I think when you hear him, there's a little bit like, I know he loves Michigan, is passionate, but it's tough, man. And the success hasn't been quite the same. But I think we'll eventually see something. It's hard. You can't come during the season. He coaches a team that plays on Saturday. But I expect one day he's coaching an opponent playing at Levi's. That's what I would expect.
Yeah. I would also not be surprised seeing back in the NFL. I can't help but think, John, of we both love Garth Brooks, listening to just something you said, the song Unanswered Prayers, where Garth takes like his wife back to high school and he sees his high school girlfriend that he just wanted to marry her. And then he's like, yeah, it's probably, the song is basically like, yeah, this worked out. That was what it was, and it didn't need to be any more than it was.
And you know what? That's how it usually works for both sides. Like, I think Jim, big picture, is like dealing with everything that he had to deal with. He couldn't work with Trent Baalke anymore. I also think it's really put under the microscope as we talk about the NFL. Ever since then, and we've had some major Grigson, Pagano, Roseman, and Chip, like how important that relationship is. Think how often we talk about it, just talking about other teams and how important it is to be like John Schneider and Pete, or Andy and Veach, or kind of what Kyle and John have developed. You know, that's kind of when I feel like, and it's always been a part of football and pro sports, but in the NFL specifically, I feel like we talk about that relationship much more seriously since the Baalke-Harbaugh divorce.
Which would be the argument for him not being back in the NFL, because it would be hard. I don't think a GM who has control is hiring him, right?
Remember, they used to go on jogs.
They did. At the beginning, they did. Baalke and Harbaugh did go on jogs. The other thing I think, John, listen to this, is when it happened, I know from our standpoint, I think most of the blame went to the 49ers, and probably in retrospect, and to Jed York, and probably in retrospect that was not completely fair or completely true, right?
Well, I think when you cut a famous good player or you fire a famous good coach, that guy has built up equity with the fan base, whether that player's a pain in the ass, whether that coach is a pain in the ass. When that guy's won and excelled for you, the fans are always going to get their back in the immediate, regardless of the leaks and the information. Now, maybe over time you find out more stuff, emotions are not as high, but I completely understand we just witnessed Nolan and Singletary and Erickson, and we had this, and even the shittiest year was 8-8.
Make it work.
Yeah, figure it out.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
So I never, and we both understand. I think most people do. Like, that guy's always going to get the benefit of the doubt, right? Like, if it turned out, you know what? Alabama's just had enough of Saban. It's like, it doesn't get any greener on the other side. I will promise you that.
Yeah, but
and look at the Niners. Like, it took them a long time.
Well, part of it is like, if you're going to walk away from that, you better upgrade. And for a number of years, they didn't upgrade, and now it feels like they ended up in a spot where we'll see as time goes on. We think highly of Kyle Shanahan, obviously, but maybe they found a way to upgrade despite all of it. And it takes luck, and you stumble around in the dark sometimes, but here we are.
Will Kyle go to 3 straight NFC Championship games?
Probably not.
Shows you how hard that is.
Yeah. All right, let us know what you think about Harbaugh and the 49ers with the benefit now of hindsight down there in the comments below.